Hello. Welcome to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos. Brian Koberger is connected to Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, through Dr. Katherine Ramsland. Who is Katherine Ramsland? And why is she between two killers with so much in common? That's now on the Sleuth Intuition channel. All righty, guys. Welcome back. Good to see everybody. Miranda, Cheeks, Christine, everybody else out there. So let's dive right in. Koberger is a PhD student and teaching assistant in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology at Washington State University in Pullman, located about 9 miles west of the University of Idaho. Before moving to Pullman, he received his bachelor's degree from DeSales University in Pennsylvania in 2020 and completed a master's degree in June of 2022. The university said in a statement, "At the university, Koberger was reportedly taught by Ramsland, a forensic psychologist who has spent decades studying serial killers. She has not made any public comments since Koberger's arrest. I'm making no media statements at this time," she told Newsweek. Ramsland, PhD, is a professor and assistant provost at DeSales University. Provost. She came to the university specifically to teach forensic psychology, focusing on her field of expertise, extreme offenders, according to her biography on the university's website. Having experienced the excitement of forensic psychology, she hopes to show students how to find and prepare for its many opportunities. According to the page, courses she teaches at the university include forensic psychology, psychological sleuthing. I thought that was interesting. Dangerous minds and behavioral criminology. Ramsland holds a master's degree in forensic psychology from the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, a master's in clinical psychology from DeQuint University, and a master's in criminal justice from DeSales University, and a PhD in philosophy from Rutgers University, according to her biography on the Psychology Today website. She writes the shadow boxing blog for the website, which is described as one that probes the mind's dark secrets. So I thought we'd kind of go through that and take a look. So I've read a couple of these today after reading that article. Maybe I can. So this is shadow boxing. It's basically her little portion of Psychology Today. Very interesting. As you can see at the top, the logo, Psychology Today, Shadowboxing, a blog that probes the mind's dark secrets. Katherine Ramsland, PhD, is a professor of forensic psychology at DeSales University. Let me fix the screen. What's up, GP? Welcome in, Mustang Charles. Presence upon me. Fairly certain anyone that kills multiple human beings is considered more than creepy. What's up, Cyber Warrior? So let's take a look at some of these pieces that she's published here. This one's titled 5 Ways Predators Target Kids. That's her most recent piece. That she actually put that up just a few days ago. Excuse me. Psychopathy, 3 dimensions of youthful psychopathy. She put that out January 31st of this year. Although much research on kids at risk to develop psychopathy has focused on callous, unemotional traits, this streamlined approach might miss some who need intervention. Some of the more clever children. Keeper of Lost Causes, serial killers, the call to kill. When the doctor's a serial killer, interesting. Are there any female spree killers? You know, it's interesting. She's a female. The sex drive of sadist. Seeing the person in a skull. Serial killers, true crime, and the con man. Predatory girls. I don't know. Maybe we will see. We'll take a look at the sex drive of sadist and the call to kill. A new study confirms a predictive link between lust and a desire to harm. Key points. A study of the dark tetrad, or sometimes referred to, well, maybe not, found that just narcissism and sadism predicted level of sex drive. Psychopathy did not correlate strongly with level of sex drive. Future research on sex drive predictors should refine these results. So this will give us some insight to who she is and why is she connected to 2 prolific killers at this point. Why is she right in between them? And we're not just talking about any old killers. We're talking 2 killers who have a lot of similarities, right? Just for example, they were the same age. I think it was 28 when they committed their first murders. They both targeted 4 victims. Both were criminology students. I know that the BTK installed security alarm systems, and I know that Brian Koberger offered somebody potentially, right, to install some security cameras. She's talking about the BTK right here. Similarly, my work with Dennis Rader, the BTK serial killer in Wichita, Kansas, showed a link between his sadistic torture fantasies and his compulsive sex drive. The image of females, both adults and children, bound and helpless, aroused him. He made hundreds of drawings of tortured females to entertain himself. His own private pornography, he also drew his actual victims in various poses and took photos and trophies so he could relive his erotic domination. Nothing else fully satisfied him. He was a sexual sadist. By definition, sexual sadism is a neurodevelopmental dysfunction involving the desire to dominate others, usually to inflict pain. Although opinions differ on its origin, the condition appears to form from certain associations about pleasure and pain during the early psychosexual stages of adolescence. Even so, more than one third of sexual sadists report discovering their perverted desires well past their teen years. They enjoy the feeling of power and authority that arises from controlling and harming a submissive human being. Imagine that. You could only really get off by torturing another person or an animal. It's pretty scary. I mean, it's kind of the equivalent of somebody asking you as an adult to stop having sex, right? For them, that's the way they have sex. It's very sadistic. Um, the Call to Kill. Let's take a quick look at this one. Key points. A recent case of serial murder focused on the killer's religious belief. While the law allows for defeat decree, this defense rarely works. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Dific. Juries generally view religious jurisdictions for murder as delusions. A Texas jury recently sentenced Jason Thornburg to death for killing and dismembering 3 people in 2021. He burned their remains in a dumpster. When he confessed, he mentioned 2 earlier victims and offered his motive. Religious beliefs dictated his actions. His victims were sacrifices. Thornburg said he was called to do it. He'd wanted to be a missionary and said his greatest strength was a sense of purpose, a sense of destiny that must be achieved. Jeez. Thornburg told police he dismembered his victims and kept the parts stored in plastic containers in a motel room in Euless before setting them on fire. One, a male, was a roommate there. The females were casual acquaintances. The jury ignored his jurisdiction and convicted him. She writes here, the idea that God calls on someone to kill is known as the deific, like a deity, deific decree. Under this doctrine, an individual can know that an illegal act is wrong, but still be eligible for an insanity defense. The first U.S. case to officially categorize it was People versus Schmidt in 1913. The dismembered body of Anna Allmuller was found in the Hudson River. Hans Schmidt admitted his guilt. He said he'd experienced spells of religious ecstasy in which he'd heard God requiring that he kill Anna in atonement for his life of crime. She'd been a necessary sacrifice. So, how do you hide from somebody whose motive is God? God has called upon them, and you just happen to be their sacrifice. I mean, first of all, how do you know that you're being stalked? And then what are the red flags? I mean, is somebody going to be openly radical? What's up, Anna? BTK had a normal sex life with his wife, normal enough for decades of marriage and having children. She rejected his desire to dress up and bind himself, etc. Well, actually, after the majority of his murders, she actually did entertain some of that weird bondage stuff, and he was okay for a little while because she was okay with it. But then it just wasn't enough for him, and he went back to killing. What's up, Sparky? So that was a peek. If you guys want to look into that a little bit further, here, let me post the link for you. I have it bookmarked. But yeah, pretty interesting. That is Psychology Today. What's going on with the GP? All right, now let's look into some of the eerie similarities between Brian Koberger and some other serial killers, but specifically Dennis Rader. What's up, Jeanette? All right. Accused Idaho slasher Brian Koberger has eerie connections to several infamous serial murderers, including the BTK killer, the Grim Sleeper, and the Golden State Killer. Criminal justice PhD student Koberger, 28, was arrested in Pennsylvania on December 30th, 2020. What was it, 2022? In connection to November 13th stabbing deaths of University of Idaho students Kaylee Goncalves, 23, Madison Mogan, 21, Zana Kernodle, 20, and Ethan Chafin, 20. At the time of his arrest, Koberger was studying at Washington State University, just 9 miles from the scene of the murders. He had recently graduated from DeSales University in Center Valley, PA, where he was a star student of Dr. Katherine Ramsland, a forensic psychologist focused on extreme offenders. And I mean, after all of her studies, she couldn't see this extreme offender just sitting right in front of her, so curious, just wanted to know everything about the bind, torture, kill killer. And I mean, there was no red flags apparently. The author of 69 books, Ramsland made headlines when she collaborated with infamous serial killer Dennis Rader, aka the Bind, Torture, Kill murderer, on Confessions of a Serial Killer Untold Story of Dennis Rader. Let's take a look at that. Let's see. Who was Dennis Rader? Was raised in Wichita, Kansas. He later claimed that as a youth he had killed animals and developed violent sexual fantasies that involved bondage. In the 1960s, he served in the U.S. Air Force, and in 1970, he returned to Wichita where he married and had 2 children, a boy and a girl. He held various jobs, including a brief stint as a factory worker for the Coleman Company, a maker of camping equipment. In 1979, he graduated from Wichita State University, where he studied criminal justice. So there's another similarity between him and Koberger. During this time, he began working for ADT, a home security company, and in 1991, he became a compliance officer in Park City, park ranger, dog catcher, so have you, in Kansas. Rader was active in his church and served as a Boy Scout leader. And here's the book they worked together on by Katherine Ramsland, PhD, Confession of a Serial Killer, The Untold Story of Dennis Rader. And then you can kind of see a rope. I think that might be a drawing, but I'm not sure. Still creepy, right? Good to see you, Jeanette. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you all. Let's go through this brief summary here by Katherine. In 1974, Dennis Lynn Rader stalked and murdered a family of 4 in Wichita. Now remember, his first murder, Dennis Rader, that is, he was 28 years old. He killed 4 people. He was a criminology student. Brian Koberger, 28 years, very close to being 28 years old. His first murders were 4 victims. He was also a criminology student. He studied under Katherine Ramsland, and Katherine Ramsland worked with the BTK to write this book. There. So what do you guys make of all of that? In 1974, Dennis Lynn Rader stalked and murdered a family of 4 in Wichita, Kansas. Since adolescence, he had read about serial killers and imagined becoming one. Soon after killing the family, he murdered a young woman and then another until he had 10 victims. He named himself BTK, Bind, Torture, Kill, and wrote notes that terrorized the city. He remained on the loose for 30 years. No one who knew him guessed his dark secret, hiding in plain sight. He nearly got away with his crimes, but in 2004, he began to play risky games with the police. He made a mistake. When he was arrested, Rader's family, friends, and coworkers were shocked to discover that BTK had been among them, going to work, raising his children, and acting normal. This case stands out both for the brutal treatment of victims and for the ordinary public face that Rader and church council president had shown the outside world. Through jailhouse visits, telephone calls, and written correspondence, Katherine Ramsland worked with Rader himself to analyze the layers of his psyche, using his drawings, letters, interviews, and Rader's unique codes. She presents in meticulous detail the childhood roots and development of the man's motivation to stalk, torture, and kill. She reveals aspects of the dark motivations of this most famous of living serial killers and have never before been revealed. In this book, Katherine Ramsland presents an intelligent, original, and rare glimpse into the making of a serial killer and the potential darkness that lives next door. Did that give you chills? I mean, he said he was possessed by like some kind of a demon. So sometimes you wonder, like, maybe they are. What the hell could cause somebody to do that?
The serial killers, how Houston's deadliest murderer turned into a killing machine. It's always nice to see Dr. Ramsland. I think she's basically written more books. Every time we introduce you, it's like a different book. You've written more books than anybody else, and they're all fabulous. But I want to ask you about what Rex Heuermann said in court. Unexpected, hasn't spoken out before, and said, I'm not
exactly,
guilty.
Anna.
Does it surprise you he chose today to just sort of blurt that out?
Well, I think he's been...
All right. Let's take a quick pause here. Pause for the cause. Might we suggest the next book title? The serial killer I didn't see coming. Well, what about the serial killer that she did see, that she possibly tried to, I don't know, mold into a prolific killer? I mean, how did she not know?
I'm frustrated with not being able to see anything because I think he has confidence in his ability to persuade and manipulate, and he wants people to see that he's confident because charges are piling up and he hasn't had a chance to say anything yet.
Yeah, and what Laura was describing, the sort of planning document that they found on the computer, hundreds of pages of specific plans, and the fact that Heuermann cut off.
One thing I notice about Dr. Ramsland is whenever she's talking about serial killers, she focuses mainly on their success. You know, that part of it, their need for success or their measurement of their own success. And then she kind of participates in it.
This new victim, Mac's right leg with her son's name tattooed on it to prevent identification. What does that tell you? I mean, to me, I think about there was real planning involved, I guess.
There's planning involved, but he's also reading books of how other people have done this to erase identifiers. And his planning document is also a journal of mistakes he's either made or he anticipates he could make if he's not careful. So it's a checklist. It's also about make sure the rope is thick because thin rope breaks.
Interesting.
Get a lot of sleep because if you're tired, you can't do this as long as you want to. So he has a lot of instructions to himself that are based on the potential for making mistakes.
So do you think he was just writing those things for himself, like for himself to go back over and read, or do you think he wanted to like send that out at some point to other people?
Oh, that's a question.
I just have this eerie image of her sitting down with Brian Koberger and her just trusting him to commit the perfect crime. You know, this is obviously not based in the real world, but maybe too many Dexter episodes or something like that. But I can just see her kind of sitting down with him and trying to mold him and to kind of teach him the way to become like a serial killer, the to-dos and not to-dos, and then her just being so disappointed in him for dropping that damn knife sheath.
And I do kind of think there might be another person or more involved, or at least have knowledge of this. But it wouldn't surprise me that it's just a list for him, because I've seen that before with other killers where they do keep checklists, they keep documentation, they read it over because it not only keeps them prepared, but reminds them of what they've achieved.
And this latest victim found at a dump site, that's what he called it, the dump site, same area as most of the other victims. What does that tell you? I mean, I would just think if he was trying to cover it up, wouldn't you spread the victims to different places? But he's taking them all to the same place.
It's not entirely the same place, and he's treating them a bit differently, area. But it's about minimum effort and maximum protection. So he wants to be able to visit them potentially or know where they are, but he needs to hide them. He needs to carry them. And so he's going to be choosing places that he thinks will protect him, will hide the victims, but is not going to require a lot of effort.
Anna, he's getting situated quite nicely.
I mean, all the details are disturbing, but something about the torture porn sort of takes it to the next level. Apparently he was looking at the torture porn and carried it out on Valerie Mack.
Rex Heuermann was very much involved in like the dark web and all of that kind of stuff. Same stuff as like Keegan Kline and folks like that. It's all tied in. It's all tied into this underbelly.
What does that mean? I mean, was he getting ideas from the torture porn? I mean, have you seen this in other cases?
Well, it starts with fantasy, his own fantasy. He finds porn that matches it and gives him new ideas. It's called decorating his fantasy with things maybe he hadn't thought of, but he likes and he wants to try. And the more he does that, the more he wants to actually do this to somebody, because he wants to experience the feeling of domination and control over another person. He wants to see their suffering. He wants to hear them scream, because that's what he's reading about. And it's what he wants himself to do based on his own fantasy life.
You've covered so many of these killers. You know, I'm just thinking today he's in court saying not guilty. Do you think he'll stick with that? I mean, at some point, is there a thrill for them to come clean and sort of own up to what they did? Or how do you see that part of it playing out?
Yeah, there is a tipping point for some of them where they realize the evidence is so strong, and maybe their family is trying to get them to please just plead this out and be done with it. And then they'll want to talk about it. They'll want to brag. They'll want to make sure they get credit for everything. But we haven't reached that tipping point with him yet.
All right, I have a couple more. just to kind of give you an idea of who she is.
I'm Dr. Katherine Ramsland. I'm a professor
This was Dr.
of
Oz here.
psychology and an expert in serial killers. Among the books I've written was a 5-year project I did with Dennis Rader, the BTK serial killer out of Wichita, Kansas. Dr. Oz gave me a series of questions that he wanted Dennis
Exactly,
Rader
Anna.
to
He's the
address.
BK.
And Dennis Rader came back with about 20 pages or so of answers. Among the questions were things like, do you think you have a mental illness? And Rader might have said no, depending on what day he was asked. Sometimes he thinks he does, sometimes he thinks he doesn't. It's always about what impression he
Possessed.
wants to give on any given day. It can change and shift. So it's not clear that even though he has all the
Hey, Jari, what's up?
answers for
How you
Dr.
doing?
Oz, that he would necessarily stick with them if we ask these same questions today, because he's always very fluid about changing and shifting his identity for some particular purpose. Looking through these letters, we see a lot of what he's trying to portray. And one of the things about Rader is that he was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And what we mean by that is a person who's so extremely self-centered that they see the world completely through their own lens. How do things affect them? That's all that matters. For example, his daughter has a book
I'm
out
doing
right
well,
now
Jari. Welcome
talking
in.
about how much pain she's been in and the PTSD that she's suffered. And Rader says things like, did you see my name in the paper? What he wants is a
Wow.
legacy. He wants to be considered one of the elite serial killers. In the latest letter, we've been writing for 8 years. In the latest letter to me last week, he actually said, do you think I'm a classic serial killer yet? One of the most interesting aspects of Dennis Rader is the concept he came up with called cubing. When he needs to be the church leader, it's right there. He can fluidly move from one to the other when the opportunity calls or when he needs to do something. All of these are part of him. But when he's focused on one side,
So
like
crazy.
serial killer, the rest recede. He's not aware of them. That's why cubing is a great concept, because he can really think about only this side, even
Two-dimensional.
though these things are all also part of him. He
Two-dimensional
can flip to them when
on a
needed.
cube.
He's not,
It's weird.
he doesn't see them. I'm Dr.
Interesting.
Katherine Ramsland. I'm a professor.
Was the suspect in the slayings of the 4 college roommates in contact with the infamous BTK serial killer? A surprising possible link between them is coming to light today.
What could be an intriguing connection here?
Brian Kohberger has a master's in criminology from DeSales University in Pennsylvania and studied under a well-known forensic psychologist and serial killer expert, Dr. Katherine Ramsland.
Absolutely,
Dr. Ramsland
Anna.
collaborated on a book with the notorious bind, torture, kill murderer. It's called Confession of a Serial Killer. BTK terrorized Wichita, Kansas over 3 decades with a string of 10 random slayings. He sent taunting letters to cops describing his murder spree. The killings went unsolved until 2005, when a local dog catcher named Dennis Rader was finally arrested. This is Dr. Ramsland in a documentary
creepy-ass
last year
mask.
talking about her collaboration with the killer.
I've been corresponding with Dennis Rader for over 10 years to try to understand what led him to become.
And then she starts working with Brian Kohberger. I mean, I don't think that this is a coincidence that Brian Kohberger and Dennis Rader have so much in common, and then all of a sudden he's working underneath her. Mm-mm.
One of the most notorious serial killers in America.
That's the $64,000 question. Why did I do that?
It's known that Kohberger is fascinated by the criminal mind. He actually solicited information for a research study from former criminals, asking questions such as,
Mustang.
why did you choose that victim? And after committing the crime, what were you thinking and feeling? We spoke to Dennis Rader's daughter and asked whether she knew of any communication between her father and Brian Kohberger.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kohberger did have contact with my father through letter writing. Kohberger and my dad were the same age at the time of my dad's first murders.
An intriguing possibility of a gruesome link.
Absolutely. Why is she in the middle of these two men who are seemingly so evil and have so much in common, but there she is right smack dab in the middle? I tend to agree with you, Anna, on that one. I tend to agree with that. What's up, Darkside? Oh yeah, I didn't realize Kohlberger worked with her. I'm sure it did play a role in it. Living in a state known for famous serial killers. Yeah, and he's from the opposite side of the country. I mean, this isn't just by happenstance or happen chance. Thank God I didn't take criminology in school. What's that old saying? It takes one to know one. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at when it comes to Ramsland. Like, what's going on with her? Welcome in, Ava. He studied under Ramsland, who studied Shermanton, another impulse killer. I wonder if he corresponded with her. It's a good question.
Really caught your attention. Tell us why.
Koberger studied under Dr. Katherine Ramsland at DeSales University
There's one.
for his undergrad and master's in criminology. That came out right after his arrest. And Dr. Ramsland has had a many years relationship academically and personally through correspondence and phone calls with my father, Dennis Rader, otherwise known as BTK.
Right. Tell people what BTK stands for.
Bind, torture, and kill.
Mm-hmm. And what similarities do you see between your father and Brian?
Brian turned 28 right after his first murders. My dad was 28 for his first, part of the Otero family. They both murdered 4. My dad preferred to enter at night. There was one case down the street from me where he waited in a neighbor's closet.
I didn't really know what to make of that thought. The idea of Brian Koberger waiting in somebody's closet with a big knife.
I do believe Koberger studied my dad. I mean, we know that Koberger studied my dad in academic classes. I guess my question is, did he have a further interest in my dad outside of classes or higher influence through Dr. Ramsland's teachings? Because she emphasizes a class, at least one class on my father.
Right. And so they were both 28 and both of them killed 4 people if Brian, in fact, is the killer here.
So what do you guys make of those similarities? Some eerie links between the BTK killer and Brian Koberger. There you have Dr. Katherine Ramsland, smack dab in the middle. What do you guys make of it? All right, we'll spend the next 10 minutes in chat. Just give me a second. Can you guys hear me okay? Testing, testing. Can you guys hear me okay? For some reason, I'm not hearing myself. Check, check. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I can hear myself. What's up with that? All right. Yeah, that was weird. I had to play with the volume and then it started working. Appreciate that. All right, so we'll hang out another 5-10 minutes. What'd you guys think? What do you think about Katherine Ramsland? Do you guys get kind of creepy vibes from her? And we know that Brian Koberger was very curious too. You know, is she curious in the same way, or is she truly studying them? Maybe she was training them for her next book, right? Trying to create content for her book. Yep, GP, nice and comfy over here. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. In here, it's just the chat. That's all I'm looking at right now. It's just what you guys got going on. BTK is more like Colonel Russell Williams. Koberger is different. He most likely wanted to study with Ramsland due to her connections and reputation. Yeah, for sure. Like, he was successful in becoming a career serial killer. Like, he was taking all of the necessary steps, seemingly. Sparky says, I think she's creepy as fuck. Hey, what's up, Dan? Definitely creepy vibes, Dexter vibes. Yeah, that's where I'm at. There's actually a season of Dexter where I'm pretty sure it's based off of her. Mm-hmm. And she's right at home. She's like, they're not monsters to me. They're proteges. Jeanette, how are you? Is she studying them to become a serial killer herself? Or has she always been one? You know, is she there to help guide them? How to perpetrate the ruse. That'll be her next book. How to perpetrate the ruse. The long game. Hypothetically, of course. Mm-hmm. Like the psychologist from Dexter, exactly. See, Dan knows what I'm talking about. We're right here, Dan. You and me, Falker. Whoops. I skipped everybody. GP says absolutely career killer. Kimmy, what up? Ramsland does not get along with some of her peers that also profile. Yeah, because they're profiling her. I missed the show Criminal Minds, Sleuth. Yeah, that was a good one. Yep, that's what I was referring to. Fokker. Anna says BTK's first crime was home invasion with 4 victims. Sounds familiar. They were both 28 years old, both study criminology, and both know and worked with Dr. Ramsland. Coincidence? Perhaps. CJK, what up? Thank you, Sparky. Yeah, I mean, I definitely got my eye on her. She might have missed the red flags, but I'm not missing her red flags. She's like the queen bee. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's the inspiration. It would seem that way, though, right? If I had to guess. They shouldn't have ended Mindhunter. I agree. It's pretty cool. I've always wondered how the psychologists work with the criminally insane and not feel weird urges to have thoughts of doing something themselves. Well, in Koberger's case, it was kind of like he already had those urges. He was just trying to refine them. So he was using the medical field to gain knowledge and to become a better killer. I think the question is that what Ramsland is doing? Just a question. Just asking you guys what you think about that. Oh, snap. We have a super chat by Dan the Man saying, hit the thumbs up. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that, man. Oop. We don't want that. We don't want that on. Jari says, thank you, Bear. Yeah, that was nice of you, man. Thank you. Appreciate all the support. Remember, guys, we are crowdfunded. So every little bit helps. Consider becoming a member, hitting up the Cash App, the Venmo, the Zelle, whatever. Every little bit helps, guys. Be more like the Bear Jew. Hey, Christine. Sleuth, watch confronting a serial killer. He's killed 93 or more. He talks how he started, why it's something to hear and see. All right. I think I'm going to watch the Petito documentary today. I think it just came out yesterday on Netflix. But I was super busy yesterday. Thank you, Sparky. The psychologist, if psychopathic, may in fact fulfill their fantasies vicariously through their criminally insane patients. Oh, yeah, I could see that. like some kind of control, like I manipulated them to do it. Only my opinion, but I feel folks do this in the true crime community. Yeah, that's true. Flying monkeys is kind of what you're talking about too, a little bit. It's actually a medical term. Kimmy, what's up? Ramsland is most often awkward when on panels or being interviewed. I mean, she knows her shit. Hey, thank you. Appreciate that. Frederica, how you doing? Thank you, Sparky. If you guys want to hit up the Zelle, crowdfunded. So you guys rock. Thanks for the support. Definitely would explain how he came to killing the girls the way that he did. And the fact that his first attempt, his fledgling attempt, he's going after 4 victims. Thank you, Mustang. What's up, Dawn? How you doing? Abnormal psych is a deep rabbit hole to go down. Well, we started the live stream with sexual sadism. And we talked a little bit about Rex Hero. Oh yeah, guys, go check out the website. I made some changes. Let me know what you think. Sleuthintuition.com. I think it looks a little bit better. I'm going to start rebuilding it from there. All right, guys, this is our 5-minute warning. If you have anything to add, please do so now. Anna says, I have wondered about Dr. Ramsland writing BTK's autobiography. I wonder if that was a book information we really needed. Yep, 4 is bold. And to use a knife like that, it's very personal. He has a lot of anger, I'm assuming. Jari, why are all here so fascinated by serial killers? I know I have been most of my life, but I'd never kill anyone, that's for sure. It's kind of like it triggers a fear. And I guess a fear might trigger some kind of an excitement, which might trigger some kind of an might categorize as like some type of entertainment. You know, to entertain such a dark idea. It's a little risque and kind of scary, to kind of go down that path. Try to get into the mind of a serial killer is very interesting for me. Frederica, you could probably get her on your show. Yeah, it'd be nice to have her come on here and school us. She's like, you thought you could profile me. Well, how about this? And then just break you down. Like Miggs in Silence of the Lambs. Not anymore. Mustang, hey, I'm not the only one that wears shorts and a hoodie. That's me all day. Golf shorts, t-shirt, hoodie, and a hat all day. All right, guys, if you're part of that replay crew, you know exactly what to do. Leave a comment. We'll get back to you. All right. Let's close her out. Kimmy says a serial killer tried to abduct a teenager on the corner of my street when I was 10. Guy was the janitor at my middle school. Holy shit. And it makes you wonder, is that why he became the janitor? You know, did he have some kind of secret room in the school, or was he drilling holes through the wall? Like, there's always some kind of weird motivation, I feel. Thank you, Dawn. It was good to see everybody. We got the studio in full effect. What do you guys think? It's fully operational. I've invited a couple of people, so I'm getting some guests lined up for live in-person interviewing here for the video podcasting that we have planned. So you guys can look forward to that. And if you did like today's broadcast, make sure you hit the thumbs up, maybe share it on your X or with anybody you think might be interested in today's topic. Either way, I appreciate everybody. Special thanks to Dan for sponsoring today's live stream. Thank you for that. Very thoughtful. And all of you members, subscribers, donors, lurkers, whatever. Newcomers, newbies, rookies. I appreciate it. All right. Catch you guys on the flip side. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. If you're in the Phoenix metropolitan area and you're interested in being a guest here on the Sleuth Intuition channel, please give me a call here at this number or shoot me an email there. I look forward to hearing back from you. Have a great day.